Welcome to Chapter 13, Capital Budgeting Decisions. The term capital budgeting is used to describe how managers plan significant cash outlays on projects that have long-term implications, such as a purchase of new equipment and the introduction of new products. This chapter describes several tools that can be used by managers to help make those types of investment decisions. You all set, Sketch?
Of course! I'm planning on a significant cash outlay this evening.
You are? What's it going to be?
A pizza! With all the fixings. With my budget, that is a significant cash outlay with long-term implications.
Capital budget analysis can be used for any decision that involves an outlay now in order to obtain some future return. Some typical capital budgeting decisions might include asking if we should purchase a new equipment to replace an old machine, which would reduce costs. Or should we expand our plant to increase capacity or sales?
Or just deciding which machine among several choices we should buy. Or should we lease or buy the equipment that we want?
And should we replace an old equipment now or later? Managing a business is full of these types of choices, and the wrong decision can really have huge negative consequences. Capital budgeting involves two basic steps. First, we screen our options. Does a proposed project meet our preset standard of acceptance, such as a minimum rate of return?
Once we have some options that meet our minimum standards for acceptance, then we decide which action to take.
When judging capital projects, most companies assess a project based on cash flows generated by a project rather than income generated by the project. We'll look at payback, net present value, and internal rate of return in this chapter as ways that companies measure projects. Some typical cash outflows that we would consider in a net present value calculation are things like our initial investment or purchase, or anticipated repairs or maintenance.
We might have incremental operating costs or additional working capital.
You may remember that working capital is defined as current assets less current liabilities. If we buy a bigger and faster production machine, we would need to buy additional raw materials inventory to keep the machine running. This additional inventory is a cash outflow at the time of purchase of the machine, but is recaptured at the end of the life of the machine when the additional inventory is no longer needed. Because of that, working capital is recognized as a cash outflow at the beginning of the project and a cash inflow at the end of the project. All of these things are cash outflows that may occur at various times, so we want to express each of them in today's dollars. In turn, we might have the following inflows of cash in our present value calculations. We may have a reduction of costs by purchasing a more efficient machine, or an increase in sales because we have more production.
At the end of the project or life of the equipment, we might have a salvage value when we sell the equipment. After the equipment is no longer used, we have the release of the working capital investment.
Each of these items are cash inflows that occur at different times of the project. So just as with the outflows, we want to express these in today's dollars. An important part of capital budgeting is recognizing that $1 today is worth more than $1 a year from now. So projects that promise earlier returns are preferable to those that promise later returns.
I get this. I can't buy the pizza tonight with my paycheck that I won't get until next week.
That's right. The cost of the time value of money is the foregone opportunity cost. If you had the money today, what could it earn for you? That's what you're giving up if you wait until some time in the future. To work capital budgeting problems that involve paying out money and receiving money at different times, we have to bring all of the cash flows to a single point in time. Then we can do a comparison between like items.
By converting future dollars into today's dollars, we are discounting the cash flows, or converting all the cash flows into today's dollars.
Let's determine a payback period for an investment. The payback method focuses on the payback period, which is the length of time that it takes for a project to recoup its initial cost out of the cash receipts that it generates. This measurement is used by companies that might be more sensitive to cash or have less cash, so they want to understand how soon they will be able to get their money back from a particular investment.
The payback method analyzes cash flows. It doesn't consider the time value of money, only how quickly an investment will earn back its cost out of the cash receipts that it generates.
When the annual net cash inflow is the same every year, the formula for computing the payback period is the investment required divided by the annual net cash inflow. Assume the management of the Daily Grind wants to install an espresso bar in the restaurant. They know that the cost of the espresso bar is $140,000 and it has a 10-year life. They also estimate that the bar will generate annual net cash inflows of $35,000. Management requires a payback period of 5 years or less. Sketch, can you calculate the payback period on the espresso bar?
Well, payback period is the investment required divided by the annual net cash flows. So that would be $140,000 divided by $35,000, or 4 years.
That's right. So since the company requires a payback shorter than 5 years, they would probably choose to do this investment. Some criticisms of the payback method would include:
a shorter payback period does not always mean that one investment is more desirable than another. This is because the payback method ignores cash flows after the payback period. So it doesn't even consider things like the useful life of an investment or money received after the investment has fully been paid back.
That's right. It completely ignores the time value of money. But there are some strengths as well.
It can serve as a screening tool to help identify which investment proposals are in the ballpark.
It can also help companies that are cash poor in identifying investments that would recoup cash investments quickly.
It can also help companies that compete in industries where products become obsolete rapidly to identify projects that will recoup their initial investment quickly.
When the cash flows associated with an investment project change from year to year, the payback formula introduced earlier can't really be used. Instead, the unrecovered investment must be tracked year by year.
For example, If a project requires an initial investment of $4,000 and provides uneven net cash inflows in years 1 to 5 as shown, the investment would be fully recovered in year 4.
We just add up the net cash inflows for each year until we reach the initial investment. That's all for Chapter 13, Module 1. See you soon.